Hi, everybody, and welcome to Feeding the Family. I'm your host, Jill Troderman. We're a little delayed in starting. Sorry about that, folks. Had a little technical difficulty, but let me reintroduce my guest. Kelly, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
I texted you because I was like, I can't hear you anymore.
Okay. All right. Well, let us start again. So today I have in the studio Kelly Dearie. Kelly Dearie is a gut and health coach. So she works with people in healing their guts, which means that she's trying to help people bring back their metabolic health. 14 years ago, Kelly fell in love with probiotic and nutrient dense foods as she supported her husband's natural healing from two serious diseases. They were deemed incurable by allopathic doctors. Her husband canceled a life-threatening surgery and has fully recovered, even though they said it wasn't possible. Since then, Kelly has learned so much about healing and the power of foods they have. Kelly has invented hundreds of recipes and has discovered creative ways to make delicious healing foods that make your body hum with joy. And she wants to share her passion with you. And I also know Kelly is an amazing chef, I read in her bio, and she also had a business making fermented foods, of which I definitely enjoyed. So welcome, Kelly.
Yay. Thanks so much. It's so good to be on your show, Jill.
Thank you. All
Yeah,
right.
and wow, well, it's overwhelming, like hearing those statistics. It almost feels hopeless, but
Well,
I know there's strategies we can apply that will help.
there are, and there's terrible statistics. And unfortunately, we got a late start on the recording, so I'm sorry, but let me read some of those statistics. So 90% of all of our foods that families eat come from packages. 70% of all kids have some sort of a chronic disease. Only 1 in 4 kids eats enough fruits and vegetables. And I wonder how the parents are doing in that department. Also, parents spend over 67 hours negotiating with their kids over food through over an entire year. That is crazy. So I know.
Just
Kelly, I'm sure,
remembering that one. I'm
right?
remembering that I probably spent 90, but anyway, 90%. But anyway, go ahead.
Right. And I think a lot of us who got into the field of nutrition had those similar things, right? Because in
Oh.
fact, I did spend a lot of time negotiating with my kids, and that's exactly why I got into this field. So later on in the show, we're going to be talking about Kelly has some really amazing foundational habits that all parents can use so they can stay on top of their nutritional routines. And then we're also going to talk about some amazing meals and snacks that you can practically make in your home that are easy and nutrient dense and wonderful that your kids aren't going to fight over. But we do know that kids have a lot of, they do fight with us. And one of the reasons I did get into this is because I was tired about fighting with my children, and I realized I had to teach my kids about nutrition at a very early age. When my first son was a little baby, he was about 2 years old, we were at a family wedding in New York, and my cousin was holding my son, and there was a swimming pool separating us. So I was sitting on one side, and my cousin was holding my child on the other. And at that time, I was raising my children to be vegetarians. I ate a vegetarian diet, so that's pretty much what we ate. And my child at that time was definitely a vegetarian until we were at this wedding and I see my cousin hand my son this giant meat rib. It was the size of a Fred Flintstone type rib. And I was like, no, what's happening? And I couldn't run over there and get it from him. And it really was an aha moment for me when I saw that interaction. I was like, wow, my son is his own person. He's going to make choices through the rest of his life, and I'm going to have to teach him. And I did. And that's one of the reasons I got into nutrition, is to help myself navigate this world. What about you, Kelly? You want to share a little bit about what got you involved in the world of nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really long story, but it's a combination of meeting friends who introduced us to like the new and exciting world of alternative diets and raw foods and sharing food with us. And then, of course, my husband's healing journey, which is almost like a miracle story on its own. And then struggling with my own personal issues of having to balance hormones and actually being for a while I was like completely crazy. had to if I didn't learn about nutrition, I probably would one of those people that keeps coming back to the mental hospital and the psych ward for her whole life, honestly. So I use nutrition to basically just be a balanced person. So, on all physically balanced, hormonally balanced, spiritually balanced. And nutrition and spirituality, as you know, really go hand in hand. Mindset and nutrition, the gut, the link between like what we put in our bodies, our thoughts that we think, how we feel in our bodies, how we take care of our bodies, and gut health. It's all totally linked. So if you're missing one of the it's like a wheel that can spin, and if one of the spokes is missing, it's not gonna it's just it's teetering on the edge of something going off balance or even collapsing. And so I've learned a lot over the years, and I've of course helped a lot of clients heal their guts and just kind of get things back into balance. And my son definitely struggled. He had various learning disabilities and things like that. And he was a candidate for, being on a bunch of drugs for the rest of his life. And so we didn't want to go that route, medications. I know some people choose that, but for me, it's like, well, if there's, why don't we first, before, medication would be like a totally last result. It's like, if there's an imbalance, why don't we fix it with food and nutrition? Because I would say, just based on my experience, research, I would say over 90% of these types of diseases and neurological issues that we're seeing in kids, and even autism, which I know this sounds crazy, but a lot of it can be healed. And even things that people say, or the medical system says there's no cure, don't believe it, because I have met so many moms who have healed their kids even from autism. So even though in the medical community it can't be done, right? And it's like, I just think of all the times if we would have believed in that, in just that allopathic story, how our lives, it's scary actually, like to think of what our lives would be like. My husband probably would be dead. Like, it's just, the list goes on, and it's so
right. And
so,
you had hormone stuff. I had that too, and that's one of the reasons I did seek nutrition school to figure out what was going on. And a lot of parents probably don't have that opportunity.
Right.
And it is a balance, right? It's not just about eating. Right. It's not just about your spirituality. It's a trifecta of those things. So
yeah. And learning and behavior, most parents at least get that. You give your kid sugar and they're off the wall, right? And so at least there's that concept. Almost every parent can understand that. Like, oh yeah, sugar can be disastrous in an environment where you need your kid to be calm or learn, right? But like, what parents don't think about are all, these 70 other components in the foods that are also throwing people off. And if your child is already leaning towards having learning or behavior issues, it's just, it's like night and day if you have them, if you can figure that out and have them on wholesome foods versus the processed foods, right?
Yes. Now let's go a little bit macro before we get into the micro stuff. Okay. So let's talk about, right. Let's talk about the mind, the body, and the soul. So I did write a book called The Food Tree: Holistic Nutrition and Wellness Curriculum, a mind, body, soul approach to teaching kids how to eat well and be healthy. So Kelly and I are going to pop through those to help, first of all, parents teach their kids how to incorporate all of these different things to become a really well-balanced, whole type of person, okay? So feeding the mind, what does that mean? For me, that means teaching your kids how to be critical thinkers, encouraging your kids to ask questions, letting them process and figure things out, and certainly educating them about food and nutrition, right, Kelly? Like, encouraging them to cook with you, read cookbooks, learn about food history, talk about what's going on in the world, right? Having intellectual curiosity, I think, is really important for kids to become confident eaters.
I love that, Jill. I just have to laugh because it's just what you said just reminds me of a dear friend of mine, and she called me one day and she goes, your son, he because Gabriel was over their home, had a sleepover. He's like, he read every label in our fridge.
Exactly.
And was educating us about all the ingredients. And
That's
we were just
hysterical.
cracking up, and I was like, I'm sorry, like he's like, look who he's grown up with, can't help it.
I'm
So
sure my
anyway.
kids could totally identify because they're grown up now, but I know. So it's a pro and a con, right? Because the more you know, the more you know,
Right.
right? And parents are the biggest influencers. We are buying the food. So we want to make sure that when we're in the grocery store, we're having conversations with our kids about why we're buying certain foods or why we're not buying certain foods and not getting into all of those horrible battles that parents often are getting into. Hundreds of years ago, I'm sure they weren't having battles over Oreo cookies, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Very good point.
Okay.
Well, I have memories of every time my son came home from his grandparents' house. Hopefully they're not listening to this. I don't want to offend them, but I don't think they are. But he would throw up every time because they'd
Mm,
take him he'd eat things like fast food that he'd never even tried before. And so
right.
he got a crash course. He got a crash course firsthand. Like when you don't do those things, your body rejects them.
Indeed. And I think that's part of what we need to do for our kids is just be straight up and honest with them about how foods are influencing them. And I'll
Hmm.
share a story in when my second kid was a youngster, we went to an ice cream parlor to get ice cream cones and I I was the second one up. He had already gotten his ice cream and it dawned on me like, "Oh no, what are the ingredients? I have to ask." And my son looked at me, "Please, please," with begging eyes, "do not ask what the ingredients are. Please, mom." He was like begging me, "Please, mom, don't do this." Well, I did. I asked, and certainly the ice cream had hydrogenated oil. And that's one of
Oh,
my 9 nutrition
oh,
vampires of foods. In
right.
fact, hydrogenated oil is currently banned by the
Hmm.
USDA, but it's still in circulation in our foods. I could share about that with Girl Scout cookies. Um, but nonetheless, I looked at my child and I'm like, you know what that is? Here comes the education part. He knew, and I let him have that opportunity to make a conscious choice if he wanted to eat it or not. And so he took that ice cream and he threw it away outside. And I've shared the story a bunch of times before, and it was half really devastating and half I was very proud of him. But of course, we weren't going to neglect him. We all went out and got another fun treat that was delicious, but had healthier ingredients. So I really want people to understand that eating healthy does not mean that you have to deprive yourself of fun sweets once in a while. Wouldn't you agree with that, Kelly?
Yeah, I do agree. And um, my son's off to college now, right? And
Nice.
yeah, and he he's eating at the dorm, the dorm food, or the food at the school. And I know there's a lot of fried stuff he's eating differently
Mm-hmm.
than he does at home. But when he does come home, he wants to talk about it. Like, well, I think I'm eating too much of this and that. Like it's on his mind. He's he has the background established so that he can at least be conscious and aware. Even though he's developing some bad habits, he knows he doesn't want to have them be lifelong habits. He knows where that is going to lead him. And of course, his skin breaks out too. That's an immediate consequence of eating that type of food. Um, but it's really nice that we can open up the conversation, and then he's so appreciative when he comes home to have the homemade food. He's too lazy to actually, at this point, to actually make something like I would make, although he can put, he can definitely put food together. And when he is in a good mood, he will go all out and just cook the most amazing tasting dishes with fresh whole ingredients. And so, when he graduates, I know that when he graduates, when he has a job, when he's independent, when he's actually shopping for himself, I know that he's going to be looking for the best oils. He's going to be going shopping with nutrition in mind. Will he get a few junky things? Yeah, he will. But the core of what he's going to be thinking of in his mind, body, and soul is looking at, oh, this is a really good deal for these high quality ingredients.
I love that so much because it's really not about being perfect or neurotic because it's just too impossible. We all eat random weird things occasionally, but I love that he's super conscious and aware, right? And the second one, the body. So your son is Gabe. And one of the things that I like to teach parents and kids about feeding your body means eating in season as much as we can, cooking with your kids, being physical, making sure the kids are going outside. That's another epidemic that we're having in the United States is a deficit of nature deficit disorder. It's a thing.
So true.
So
true.
Just all the parents out there, this is kind of like the macro approach, you could say. So the mind, body, spirit. So making sure we're teaching our kids to be physical and being in their bodies and appreciating the body that they do have. Unfortunately, kids aren't physically well, and that's certainly disconcerting. And I know kids want to feel well. So put down the phones, put down the screens, and everybody get on their bikes, go outside. There's obstacles to that. So we have to make sure that we're creating opportunity in schools also for kids to be exercising and being outside and feeling really good with their bodies. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Jill. Yeah, it's so important. And you might notice this. I notice this. So if I don't get enough exercise, I have to be really strict with my diet.
Mm-hmm.
The more exercise I get, the more freedom I have, the less healthy foods like going out for pizza once in a while or whatever it is.
Hmm.
If I'm exercising a lot, I have no issues digesting that giant hamburger, whatever, right? But if I'm, it's a long winter, I haven't been going, I don't have the same luxury of just eating whatever I want. I have to be more strict. I have to be really conscientious of my food. And I can feel it in my body if I just go off a little bit. So, and I notice that a lot with my clients, like when they get on an exercise routine, they're not as sensitive, like a lot of their food sensitivities seem to go away.
That's
Which
fascinating.
makes,
It does.
yeah. And because it's all related to the gut. And when we exercise, and the gut, your gut health is related to your nervous system health, right? And so if your thoughts are running on overdrive and you have anxious thoughts and worried thoughts, right, that's going to affect your gut health. That's going to affect digestive motility. That could manifest as stress, which will actually shut your digestive system down, and you can't digest. It's literally kind of like shutting down. So what happens when you get out, when you play, when you laugh, when you have fun, when you get vitamin D from the sun, fresh air, nature, you're running around? Well, what happens is you're releasing all those stress hormones, and you're increasing your ability to digest. You're actually feeling hungry. There's different hormones kicking in that are going to help you digest, release more bile. So it is that wheel of, it is a spoke on a wheel that needs to turn and needs to roll, right?
It does. And I like that it's a perfect segue into the spirit aspect of ourselves is really being able to tune in to ourselves. And really, I want the parents to impart this on their kids, to teach your children to have them pay attention to how they're feeling. You can't necessarily know what your kid's feeling, but they can certainly tune in, and maybe they are having stress. And if they could figure that out, then they can help manage their health better. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's, I think the two things parents are struggling with the most in their homes is, yeah, getting kids to eat healthy, finding ways to do it, and getting them off devices. And and to do it in a way that you're firm and consistent, and there's a routine and there's boundaries and rules, but without being totally neurotic and imperial versus the rebels.
For sure, right? You want to be
Right,
authoritative, not authoritarian.
right,
And
right,
create, yeah. And I think once kids understand that if they're sitting playing screens all day, they're feeling lethargic, maybe grumpy, like 1 out of 7 kids has some sort of a mental health issue. And who wants that? Nobody. That's like not a fun place to be in. So we can
right.
encourage our kids to tune in to their spiritual self. After they're eating well, they're physically outside, they're enjoying the sunshine. Some other things that we could do to encourage our balance of the mind, body, spirit is having kids maybe do some journaling, meditation. I really am a big fan about family meals and even saying some sort of a prayer. It doesn't have to be religious at all, but just something giving thanks. And that's like a really sweet reminder that we need each other. We're dependent on a lot more than just ourselves to live a happy, healthy life.
I love that. I love that you brought that up. Family meals were so important, even though things could get chaotic and stressful. We made it a point that we are sitting together as a family and having a family meal, and it's so important. You don't. I mean, it's so funny that now we have to have statistics to know that family meals are so important and good and healthy for children and families. It's like, do we really need a statistic for that? But that's. But of course, there have been studies that show it's very beneficial to healthy family life. And also the prayer, there have been studies that show like giving gratitude and praying over food actually increases your ability to digest that food. And there's also studies that show that farmers, people and children, people that actually grow the food, touch the food that they're eating, they digest it better as well. So yeah, it's kind of amazing. And even if you don't have time to grow your food, getting children involved with the food making, um, oh, it is so crucial, because that is key to getting your kids to be able to actually enjoy new foods, enjoy things like, vegetables and whole grains, and if you're not vegetarian, different types of protein, meat protein, because when they help prepare the foods, all of a sudden they're eating it and they're liking it and they're trying it, and it could be like a thing that they would have never eaten before, tasted before, but when they're making it with their hands, all of a sudden they want to eat it. And you don't know how many families I've talked to, and moms who've all said the same thing. Yeah, my son never liked that, but once we prepared it together, when he did it his way, he loved it. And so yeah, and that's one of many strategies and tips I have. And yeah, so at some point I'd love to share with you, Jill, just these little strategies and habits that parents can cultivate. And
Uh,
because learning is
yeah,
doing, it's not lecturing, it's routines, habits, systems, and getting our hands and getting messy and dirty, and being willing to actually get a little messy and dirty and chaotic to actually have better health.
I totally agree. And I think people, when they do cook, you're right, they do want to eat the food. And there are studies on that it's better for your kids to actually physically cook and get their hands in the batter, you could say, than just observing from afar and enjoying it. My mom was a great chef, so I had the great pleasure of enjoying that. And it wasn't until maybe in college when I really started to cook for myself. And thank God I do, because I love cooking now. It's great. So Kelly, what kind of tips do parents, how can they incorporate some certain tips to bring healthier eating to their families?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say, for families listening, tuning in, I know it's always hard, because it's like you finally find something healthy that your kid likes, and then by the time you buy it and prepare it, it seems like they're already sick of it.
Mm-hmm. So
So it's
don't
like
get
knowing,
discouraged.
yeah, don't get discouraged, because you just, it just helps to really all you need is time to process and think about it. And that's the thing, is most parents are so overwhelmed with everything else that food comes last, and then it's just a last minute thing to get it on the table. And so I just want to encourage everybody, these strategies I'm going to give, these strategies are a thought process. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of stopping, each day and giving it a little bit of intention. And so one of the things that is helpful, and I do this for my coaching clients, is actually to just print out some blank meal planners. And with families with kids, and it could be multiple kids, it's really fun for them when they have agency, they have choice. So there's, you might start with a brainstorm session, like, hey, let's make a list of all our favorite foods. And then make a whole list. Don't worry if they're healthy or not. You just want to get them active and excited and engaged. So write it all down, and then ask, like, if there's multiple members of the family, hey, how about Jill, you take Tuesday night? How about you pick Tuesday dinner this week? Here's the list that you made of these amazing dinners. Okay, pizza. Well, most pizza isn't healthy, but I think I have a way to make it healthier. How about we make sourdough pizza? And how about we put shiitake mushrooms on it? Are you open to that? So there's this dialogue and discussion, and so instead of like fighting, you're actually planning together like a team. And so then it's posted right on the fridge or wherever. You have the plan. And then when you go shopping, it's like, okay, you're allowed to pick, I don't know, different families are different. Some families, they have already been in a routine where the child behaves and they get to pick a treat or something, right, during the shopping experience. Other families are just like, you're going to behave and you're not going to get a treat. So whatever, everyone's different, not judging anyone's style, but whatever it is, you find something that works for your family, where you're going to be planning the meals, shopping together, picking out ingredients, and when the kids have agency, when they have a little skin in the game, it should feel different. It should seem more fun for them. So they might not be excited about picking out food and putting stuff in the cart that as a part of your meal on your night that you picked, but maybe on their night they're getting pretty excited. And so that's one strategy. And it might just be like, hey, what are your top 5 favorite foods, and that could be how the conversation starts.
That's great. And
yeah,
everybody that doesn't know, I created, and Kelly knows, I wrote a book called The Food Tree, and that's very much my philosophy, 100%, is having the kids have agency. I love that term, actually. They have buy-in. Yeah. They have some stake. They might actually want to make a steak, and that's great. And people can get really creative with it, and it's a gift that they can give to their family. It's going to make the kids feel good. The kitchen might get messy. So cooking with your kids and having the children create lists of foods they like and creating meals around that. So each family member could have a different night. You could even make it like soup and salad night's going to be this night, or Chinese night's going to be this night. Different ways to make it fun and engaging, I think, is the key. Get your kids engaged in this.
And in that process, you're teaching them the value of planning ahead.
Oh, planning ahead. What is this?
We are in a throwaway culture where everything's just last minute convenience, and the art of planning ahead, only the farmers know how to do that anymore, it seems like.
Right. Hey, Kelly, this is great. And I love that we're having this conversation. We're going to get into some more tips and strategies. First, I'm going to take a short commercial break. So hang on, Kelly. We will be right back.
That won't happen at Low Cost Air. When you dial 800-704-1662, a real person answers and helps you find the best airfares, foreign and domestic. Your choice. Or a real person. Low Cost Air, 800-704-1662. Low Cost Air, 800-704-1662.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants. Hello, I'm Jenna. Treehouse Dispensary, we use information about cannabis to build community. Listen to Carly.
Thanks, Jenna. For those who wake up in the middle of the night, Treehouse suggests a THC CBN chocolate edible blend like Sleepy Time from Sensi Chew. Sleep the night away.
For answers to your cannabis questions, ask your friends at Treehouse Dispensary, 3651 Soquel Drive in Soquel, or ourtreehouse.io.
It's time now to repair or replace your roof. Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. Well, we install leak-proof and fireproof roofs. Roofs that look nice with a lot of choices of colors and styles. We only install proven products with warranties unmatched by anybody. Financing is always available, and we have discounts for veterans and seniors. Do business with Knox Roofing, and you'll also receive a free Knox Garden Box. The number to call again is 831-461-0634. Thanks, folks.
It's time to get down to business, and here is how. Hello, I'm Alex Peterson from the Santa Cruz Small Business Development Center with an invitation for you to attend our annual Small Business Summit, May 9th at Cabrillo College. During this day-long event with more than 15 breakout sessions, you'll get to meet, greet, and learn from the leaders of our business community and community leaders like Mayor Fred Keeley. Register today at SantaCruzSmallBusinessSummit.com. SantaCruzSmallBusinessSummit.com.
Okay, folks, we are back with Feeding the Family podcast. I'm your host, Jill Troderman, and today I have Kelly Dearie, and we are talking about practical tips that you can use to feed your family so you raise healthy, confident, engaged kids. Welcome back, Kelly.
Thanks, Jill.
Hi. Okay, so we were talking about getting your kids in the kitchen and helping them cook. What other practical tips do you have for the parents?
Yeah. So once the kids kind of come up with their list of their super favorite healthy foods, it's really up to the parents at that point to actually do the research and figure out, how do we make those foods healthy? Because you can have a pizza that's really healthy and you can have a pizza that's really unhealthy. So that's really, the parents' job. And of course, obviously the ingredients are what determines whether something is healthy or unhealthy, but not just the ingredients. It's how do you prepare the ingredients? So for example, with pizza, which is a family favorite, right? There's many different ways to make pizza healthy, and even, gluten-free if that's needed. One of the things I've been making lately is sourdough pizza, and right now I'm in week 5 of my Mediterranean course. One of the things I do is I teach for an international school online called Coherence Education, and I'm the cooking teacher, and it's super fun. We all get on Zoom, and I can talk more about that later too if you want to know more about the program, because it's amazing, and critical thinking is a huge part of it. So ask me about that later, Jill, if I forget at the end to talk about it. Yeah. And but we've been making sourdough pretty much every week. So this week we're doing sourdough spanakopita. We've done sourdough pizza, and we've done sourdough raviolis stuffed with like all kinds of delicious things. And the thing about sourdough is, when people think sourdough, they just think of like going to the grocery store and buying a loaf of sourdough. It is not the same as what you make in your house.
How would you make that into a pizza dough? Can you share really quick that?
Yeah. So now, if you want to make sourdough that's healthy and that's really digestible and that has maximal nutrition, you're going to want to ferment it for 24 hours or longer. And what's cool about that is we all know, like, gluten can cause problems in the body, even in a person who doesn't have a gluten intolerance, right? Just excess gluten it's really inflammatory. It's really hard on the body. But the beauty of a sourdough is the longer it ferments, the more it's breaking down that gluten And in fact, if you go over 24 hours of fermentation, you can get the gluten down from like 200 parts per million to around 8 parts per million, which is amazing. Not only that, but you're increasing the digestibility of that dough. And in that process, when the fermentation is happening, all these yeast and bacteria are being created, and even lactic acid bacteria, like the kind that you might think of in dairy, like yogurt or kefir, that are really healthy. Even those sour, that's what's kind of developing the sour, right? The yeast is kind of creating the rise and the bubbles, and the lactic acid bacteria are kind of developing the sour. And those microbes, what they do is they're consuming the starch and the protein and the gluten in the dough, and they're excreting all these amazing nutrients like B vitamins and vitamin K. It's kind of amazing. And they'll do this in flour, they'll do this in milk, whatever medium you're giving them, they're going to transform it. Cabbage, is going to make sauerkraut. And so
And the pizza department, is that overwhelming for people to think that they're going to have to make their own sourdough pizza? Are there some hacks?
So you can actually buy, most health food stores, there's in the freezer section, I have seen frozen sourdough pizza. So if you are going to serve pizza, I would look for that. And it's just it's like an organic sourdough crusted pizza, plain cheese. You can just toss some extra toppings on there. But for those who want to get their kids involved with dough is actually so fun to work with. It's super therapeutic. It's a great way to relieve stress. So even though it's, kind of extra work, I recommend just getting into it. It's so fun, and kids just love working with dough. And
so maybe on a weekend when parents have a little extra time, they can engage in a project like making a sourdough pizza. And what are some other healthy like pizzas? So a whole wheat, using organic grains, maybe using a corn-based pizza dough. So those are some healthy ways that we could get a pizza, and having like a really nice red sauce that you can buy a jar and then add some chopped onions to it, right? So you can add your own herbs and spices, even if you're going to buy a jar of sauce. Try to get organic. Make sure you're checking the ingredient labels, making sure there's not a lot of added sugar to all of these things. Those are the healthy ways that we can make these fun like pizzas healthier, right? And adding more vegetables, good quality meats. All of those things are really wonderful ways. So pizza, those kind of fun foods don't have to be unhealthy. They can be really healthy.
Right. And they can be a good source of a well-balanced meal with the protein and the carbohydrate and the fiber, right?
Nice.
If you're paying attention to the ingredients. So pizzas is just one example. And then you mentioned the weekends, and that really is key for parents who have really, really busy full weeks. You have to take time aside on the weekend. If you don't, you are going to be eating at Chipotle every night. I mean, it's just,
right. And that's a really important thing, because I think people are like, I have no time to cook, but I think we need to almost reverse what the priorities are. Making time to cook, and then everything else is going to get easier. Yes. You're going to feel better. Your kids are going to feel better. So we have to get that mindset in that eating well and taking time to cook is actually a massive benefit in your life. That's going to make everything better.
Right. It's so true. And that also goes back to the planning ahead we talked about. Because if you're planning ahead, you're going to eat out less. If you eat out less, that means you're healthier and you save money.
Indeed.
And so, and you're teaching your kids good habits. And so it doesn't mean if you eat out, let's say like twice a week, no big deal. But like maybe plan for that. Okay, this night, Thursday, there's no way, we got soccer till this time. And so maybe Thursday is the night you eat out. Well, maybe you pick something that's like the healthiest you can think of, that's not overly expensive, and that's your spot where you go. And so, there's definitely lots of strategies, and it's all this advanced preparation, being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And when you prepare on the weekend, you can prepare, you can get really intentional. I mean, you can actually look at your meal plan that you have hanging on the fridge and be like, okay, so we're having this on this day, this on this day. Okay, let's prepare this, because then all we have to do is throw that in the Instant Pot, and press it and turn it on. We get home, it's ready. So there's, there's definitely thinking ahead. And then as far as one more point on thinking ahead is necessary for nutritional optimization of your food. And so and Jill, I know you talk about this, I'm sure, a lot, but seeds, nuts, grains, and legumes, they need to be prepared properly. Like the ancient people, they don't just throw it in a pan and add water. No, you either ferment it or you soak it or you sprout it.
Right.
So some sort of, because you want to release the lectins, you want to release the phytates, you want to release the oxalates, you want to release the tannins, because those ingredients are naturally in the seed to protect the seed. So the seed can kind of sit there all year until the rainy season comes. But they're called anti-nutrients in the nutrition world, and those block iron absorption, zinc absorption, and other minerals, magnesium. So it's really important, like if you're, let's say Wednesday night is you're having a garbanzo kind of harira, like a Moroccan garbanzo stew with all kinds of yummy spices. Well, so you're going to want to make sure you get those garbanzo beans in a bowl soaking. And whether you want to just let them sit and ferment or whether you want to keep rinsing them, it's up to you. Either way is fine. But that way, when they go into that pot and you make that stew, you're going to have 70 to 90% more nutrition. You know that those anti-nutrients are going to be broken down. And by the way, make sure if you're ever cooking beans and legumes, and you probably know this, Jill, my grandma taught me this trick, add a teaspoon of vinegar. Could be raw apple cider vinegar, any vinegar, because I think it's the oligosaccharides or fructosaccharides, one of them.
Yeah, the sugars.
Those make us gassy. And
right.
So the vinegar, the acid in the vinegar breaks that down during the cooking process.
Right.
And
you can also add kombu.
Yeah.
Now, for people who are listening, they're like, I have never made beans in my life. Like, I think most people don't. Most people buy beans out of a can. So even asking people to make beans and fermenting their nuts and seeds may seem like, whoa, that is like crazy talk. So can you share some more like practical like baby steps? And that seems advanced. We're going to have a soaking talk. Like we really need to have you come back on and we can really get into the nitty gritty details about fermentation. Remember we taught a class a long time ago?
I know, that was super fun. The art of fermentation.
I love that. And I think I think you and I could geek out on that all day long. But for parents who are like, are you even kidding? I don't know how to make fermented bread or soaking stuff. Okay. But let's just even say buy nuts and seeds to start. Like maybe make your own mixes at home, first of all. Like make your own granola. Like let's bring it down a little bit to the
Jill,
common person.
You can buy sprouted rice now. You can buy sprouted oats now. You
Nice.
can buy sprouted granolas. You can buy sprouted pumpkin seeds at Costco in a giant bag, and it's half the price. So these things, kind of like, there's so many things like ghee and bone broth, and there's all these highly nutritious items, sauerkraut, that we used to have to make ourselves, that you can go buy them now.
Okay, good.
And a lot of them are at Costco, and so it's not like, oh, I can't afford that, because it's way cheaper. And so but one of the things I did, because it does make a difference with learning and behavior, if you're preparing grains, nuts, let's just talk about legumes. If you're preparing things like legumes properly, and the thing that I learned to do, Jill, when I was doing this for my family and trying to keep them healthy, is I would say, before I went to bed, I would say, is there anything I need to soak tonight?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I would ask. That one question. Look at the meal plan. Oh yeah, tomorrow I was going to make pinto beans or chili. Okay, I'm going to just pop them in the bowl and soak them in water. That took 30 seconds.
Okay, good.
So yeah, so that's just one. Just when you're just getting started, just think, is there anything I need to soak tonight? Because it's just soaking it. Don't worry about fermentation. Don't worry about germinating, sprouting. If you just soak that seed, nut, grain, or legume overnight, all those things I talked about are going to happen with the releasing of the anti-nutrients, so you can absorb nutrition, and the activation of all kinds of nutrients that were not accessible before, and just soaking, because when you just soak overnight, you catalyze the germination process, and that's enough. So sorry to overwhelm anybody.
I know. And all this, well, I'll break it down for everyone. Okay, so what Kelly's talking about is really improving your nutrient absorption in your body. So a lot of the foods that people are eating right now are nutrient deficient. So Kelly is like, this is high level stuff, but this is how we used to eat a long time ago. And this is why we're having these podcasts on health, because kids are sick, adults are sick. 97% of all adults have some sort of a metabolic disease. So even though it seems cumbersome to maybe start cooking, this could be our ticket to a healthier society. So maybe people can start to think about one dish that they could make from scratch a week, like fully soaking their beans overnight. And so we also wanted to talk, Kelly, about some quick meals for parents, because we only have a few more minutes left.
Yeah, of course. And I can, so actually one of the things that,
or some other hacks, however, whatever else you wanted
were
to share.
talking about beans, but chili, a lot of families love chili. And that is one example of something that is so rich in fiber and protein and so nutritious that you could make and you'll have leftovers forever. And here's a good strategy. If you're just starting, like Jill was suggesting, which I love that idea, Jill, of just starting with one homemade from scratch a week. If you make a big pot, and this is what I always encourage everyone to do, save half of it in mason jars, leave a third headspace at the top, put them in your freezer. Then you have this, I mean, there's been so many times where I'm like, my fridge is starting to get empty, and my leftovers are getting depleted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cue in my mind to open the freezer.
Right.
And so I'll see the jars and I'll just be like, oh, chili. Okay. That's what I'll do. And then I just take that out, put it in the fridge, and then that'll thaw. And there's a meal that I can just quickly heat up in a pot. Or, if I want to have it tonight for dinner, say I'm taking it out in the morning, I just leave it on the counter. By dinner time, it's thawed enough to pour in the pot. And so you get, these are habits and routines.
Habits and routines. This is important for people to understand. So we're creating new habits. We're creating new routines. We're going to create the world we want to live in and create a healthier society. We're going to have to start cooking, unless everybody wants to hire a private chef like Kelly. That would be great. But if not,
I don't actually do that anymore.
No, I know.
I'm my own. I'm a private chef for myself and my husband.
Right.
That's
Be your own private. Right. Become your own private chef. Get your kids to cook. If they're sitting around playing video games, they have 1 hour. They can cook.
Yes.
But I think this is great to encourage parents to at least start with one scratch meal and then freeze it, because that can be the winner chicken dinner. Freeze your chicken and reheat it. That can be school lunches. You can even eat these really savory foods for breakfast. And that's going to provide the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the fats. Those are the macronutrients that all people need, all kids need. And these are grounding, healing foods. So I love that. So we only have 1 minute left. And so Kelly, where can people find you? Do you have a website people can reach you at?
Yeah. So I have my coaching website, and you can reach me there. If you just look up Gut Healing Wisdom. Also on Facebook, I have a private group called DIY Healing Foods. And so you should be able to find that. You might have to put my name when you're searching for Gut Healing Wisdom or DIY Healing Foods group on Facebook. You might want to put my name, Kelly Dearie, and my last, it's KELLY DEARIE, just to make sure, in case there's someone with a similar name. But
great.
But the website's creativecultures.club because of the drink company we still own, Creative Cultures.
All right. Well, Kelly, this is it. Wait. Okay. And I got to say, we're done. Yeah. We only have 10 more seconds. So thank you, Kelly Dearie. We're on the radio. This is quick, guys. I'm Jill Troderman. You can reach me at SantaCruzHolisticNutrition.com. Tune in next week, and we'll see you then. That's it. Bye-bye. We're already done. Okay. Thank you, everybody.